Czech Freelance visa, and I'll go deep into details for this one. So I'll cover everything basically that's related to the Czech business visa. So from what it is, who it is from, so who can apply, what are the steps of getting it, how it all works, how to get a trade license, how is it connected to the visa process, what's the processing time, and also I'll touch the most important topic because that's what decides if that visa gets denied or approved, and that's your business plan. So I'll go through that. I might mention the difference between a freelance visa per se and then the digital nomad visa with the freelance version of it, let's say. And then we'll also touch some most common reasons for rejections and maybe a few more details. There is a lot to cover, so let's dive right in. And if you have any questions about this topic, ask in the comments or in the chat. I will be happy to answer those either during the live stream if it makes sense or at the end of the live stream. And as you know, then I will be also doing subscribers only or members only live stream after this one where you can ask me anything. So let's go through that and let's start from the basics. So what is a Czech freelance visa? So a Czech freelance visa, you've heard all the different names maybe as well. Business visa, freelance visa, self-employed visa, živno visa, Z-list visa, or entrepreneur visa, any other names, but it basically all goes to the same thing, that you get registered as a freelancer in the Czech Republic and you apply for a visa based on that. There is also an option of applying for the visa not as a freelancer but as an owner or director of a Czech SRO, like a limited liability company, but that would be a topic for a different live stream because that's a completely different and more complicated process. So generally, freelance visa, you get registered as a freelancer in the Czech Republic. You prove that you have a realistic business plan. I'll get back to it later. You apply for a long-term visa. If approved, you get the visa for maximum of 1 year. Visa is just a sticker in your passport. And then if you want to stay longer than the first year, you can switch to a long-term residence permit with the same purpose of stay. So freelancing or business, which can be given to you for up to 2 years, and then you can keep renewing 2 years at a time if you meet the requirements. Who is it for? Who is the business visa for? Technically, there are no limits. I have something here and I don't like it. Sorry, it's just my mustache. Sorry. I thought I had some food or something. Sorry. So what is it for? What is the Czech business visa for? Technically for any nationality, so there is no limitation in that some nationalities cannot apply, as it is, for example, for the digital nomad visa. And there is no technically limitation of the business plan or of with what business plan you can get the business visa. Of course, in the real life, it does not work as simply as that, but you can most likely, or in most cases, you can imagine the applicant as an English teacher, which is a freelance English teacher, which is the most common way of getting the visa for US citizens, Canadian citizens, Australians, New Zealanders. Used to be also some South Africans, but that does not really work that much anymore. So that's the most typical example. But then any kind of freelancer type of positions, so IT specialists, marketing specialists, kind of software developers, consultants, designers potentially, photographs as well, but that might be a bit tricky. But anything you can, massage therapists, personal trainers, these kind of freelance positions. I will get back to it how realistic it is to get a freelance visa as a marketing specialist or a personal trainer, but technically there is no limitation. Let me see if we have any questions regarding this already. I have a startup project. I want to establish a company in the Czech Republic and move there. I'm a Turkish citizen. Can I establish a company in the Czech Republic and apply for a residence permit? So you're in a right live stream. I will be talking about this the whole time here. Just imagine that if you want to apply for the business visa through a company, so not as a freelancer, but through a limited liability company, that will be like 2 or 3 times more difficult, but the same principles apply here as well. So how long does it take a Czech visa verdict? I was into it in August and yet to get the verdict. I will get to how long it takes as well in a second. Hello, I'm living in Dubai. Can I get work permit? So work permit is not related to a business visa. I have Czech diploma and ICHO, so I can apply for a business visa. In that case, that would very likely be the business residence permit, because if you are already living in the Czech Republic, you cannot get a visa because you can only get a visa through a Czech embassy. So you need to get your current residency cancelled and then apply for a visa all over again, which you probably don't want to. So you could potentially switch to a business residence permit, but you can only do it after 5 years of living here or from the job seeker residence permit. Other than that, not really possible. But back to the topic. Yeah, one thing to mention here is that in basically all African countries and most Asian countries, other than Japan, South Korea, Taiwan, and yeah, might be it. Then there are quotas at Czech embassies limiting how many people can submit the freelance visa application every year. And the quota is generally very low. The highest number is 48 people in India, but that's divided into digital nomad program and a business visa. So actually it's like 24, but half of that is anyway meant for some special program. So effectively 12 people a year can apply, so 1 person a month. So in some countries, it's very difficult to even get an appointment, not even talking about getting the visa approved, because that's a completely different story. But even get an appointment might be very difficult in all African countries and most Asian countries. So that already limits who can realistically apply, but most Western countries are fine, most Eastern countries, meh. Now, steps. How to get the business visa, what are the steps that we need to take? So first step would be kind of get the trade license first, because it's needed for the visa application, so you need to get it before you apply for the visa anyway. But in most cases, you need the trade license to even book an appointment for you at the Czech embassy where you want to submit the application. Without the trade license, they usually don't book an appointment for you at all. So you should get the trade license kind of in advance. Not too much in advance, because it has a limited validity. It only is valid for 180 days. And if you don't get the visa approved within those 180 days, then the trade license will be cancelled. And then the visa could be denied because you don't have a trade license. So you need to be careful. You don't want to get it too much in advance, like 3-4 months in advance would be too much. But don't wait with that, because the trade license is also like a separate process. That's not done within a day. You need to collect some documents for the trade license, like a criminal check from the country of origin, local business address. You need to take it to the trade license office. Then they have 3 to 5 business days to like do that trade license, and you need to go there again to pick it up. So one of the first steps, but not the very first one and not the very last one, somewhere in between. You, of course, meanwhile, get all the other documents ready, because you need to have accommodation, you need to have the business plan, photos, fill in the form, criminal checks from all the countries where you've lived in the last 3 years for more than 6 months. So there is a lot. But getting the trade license is one of the most important steps, or the first ones as well, because you need it to book the appointment as well. Then you need to get an appointment at some Czech embassy and go submit the application. So again, that depends on your nationality and on your situation, because some nationalities, or most nationalities in the world, are only allowed to apply in the country of origin. So if you're an Indian, you can only submit your visa application in India at the Czech embassy, or in the country where you have been residing for more than 2 years legally. But for some nationalities, like Americans, Australians, Canadians, Mexicans, there is this exception that they can submit the Czech visa application through any Czech embassy in the world, as long as the embassy accepts visa applications. So as an American, you don't have to apply in the US, but you can apply in Germany, in Dresden, or in London, or somewhere else. So that's one thing, but then it depends, or depending on where you have to submit the application, there is a specific process how to book the appointment. As I mentioned, if you're from most African countries, or all African countries, most Asian countries, even to get the appointment might be very complicated because of the quotas. So before you commit to getting the freelance visa for the Czech Republic, this should be definitely first question you ask. Can I even submit the application? Are there quotas? Will I be able to get an appointment or not? So then you submit the application. When I finish the third step, guys, I will go back to your questions because I see that there are quite a few already as well. So I will go to the questions in like 2 minutes. I just want to finish the step number 3 because step number 2 was submitting the application. And usually when you're submitting the application, you also need to go through a pretty detailed interview. And again, that depends on the nationality and the business plan. If you're American English teacher, they will ask you 10 questions, which if you prepare in advance, ideally with the help of someone who knows the questions, then you will be pretty fine. But if you're an Indian and you want to open an Indian restaurant, the questions will be like 100 and they will go like super deep. So you can spend like a couple hours at the embassy. But in general, there is always some form of interview and you need to be ready for that as well, both paperwork wise, I will get back to it in a second, and also like mentally and information wise, because some of the questions are kind of clear, like what's your business and where will you live? It's like simple questions, but some of them might be a bit more complicated. How much you know about Czech social security system, healthcare system, how much do you plan on earning, like do you have a website, how much you will be charging, all these kind of things. So you need to be a bit prepared for that. But once you submit the application, officially the Ministry of the Interior has 90 to 120 days to make the decision. Again, depending on your business plan, the country of origin, season, and a couple more factors, it might take 2 weeks to make the decision or to get the decision, or it might take 7 months and you will need to get the trade license renewed and there might be like other things you have to do. So it very much depends on many factors. Of course, if you get, or the better you get the application prepared, the less chances for some complications there are. There might always be complications, but generally the better you prepare, the faster the process is and the easier the process is. And then once you get approved, if you get approved, you need to buy a health insurance. Then it depends again on your nationality, because you either need to buy health insurance covering the full validity of the visa, so let's say 1 year in advance, or you just need to buy a health insurance for 2 months, then you activate the trade license and then you will be part of the public healthcare system, which is, for example, case of Americans. So Americans do not have to buy insurance for the full year in advance, but only for like 2 months, and then you will be paying towards the public healthcare system on monthly basis. But for most other nationalities, you have to buy insurance covering the full validity of the visa in advance, go back to the embassy, collect the visa, then you come back to the Czech Republic, and there are still plenty of steps you need to take. That's one of the reasons why the business visa is is the most complicated that exists in the Czech immigration system, because even when you get the visa approved, you still have many steps that you need to take. So first, go to the foreign police, get registered, and get a confirmation that you got registered. Because without that, you will not really activate your trade license. You might potentially go to the Ministry of the Interior, because the foreign police will not do that. It's been constantly changing and it depends on where you go. But that's usually one thing. Get registered, get a confirmation. Then you need to go back to the trade license office, activate your trade license, because the trade license you've had until now is inactive, basically just good enough for the visa process, but not really to actually run business in the Czech Republic. And then you have to get registered with all the subsequent authorities, Social Security, Healthcare, Income Tax Office. Then you need to set up your data box. Ideally, logins to all the online like social security system, healthcare system, your taxes, and you might also need to get registered to pay the TV, or not pay, but to get registered with the TV authority and the radio fees. And depending on the type of your business, there might still be some other things you have to do. So there is still kind of a lot to do, but then the maximum validity of the visa is 1 year, can be shortened depending on a couple of factors, but if you get it for a full year, you're good for a full year. Now, before we get to the part of proving your business plan, let's say, or like why do you want to get the business visa, which is the most crucial part. Let me see your comments and see if I can answer the questions there. So I have Czech diploma, residence permit, I answered that. Who is behind you, sir? I saw that and I was a bit afraid that you see some ghost or something, but there's no one behind me. So, dobrý den, pan Jan Kalina. Okay, I'm from Argentina. I can't access this one. You can. The business visa is meant for any nationality, so even people from Argentina can access it, but depends on your business plan. If you're a Spanish teacher or maybe an English teacher, even if not a native speaker, you might potentially do it. If you want to do something else, you would need to prepare your business plan very well, and we'll talk about it in a second. Hi, shout out here in Armenia. I'm Filipina from Philippines. Hello. I'm sending regards to Armenia. Thank you, Anne, for the information. I have zaměstnanecká karta and can apply for the business visa. Is the ICHO also required for that? ICHO also have. Well, that would be, again, as I mentioned in the previous question, if you already have an employee card or any other type of visa or residence permit in the Czech Republic, you can only switch to business purpose of stay after 5 years of living here. So if you've been here for more than 5 years, yeah, you can switch, although I don't really recommend it because that will make everything more complicated for you. If you have been here for less than 5 years, you cannot really do it. The only thing you could do is to cancel your current residence permit, so the employee card, and then go to an embassy and apply completely again through the embassy, and then I don't recommend that either. So you can have employment and the trade license on top of it and do both things, but not really to switch. IČO is vedlejší. Can I come over to Czechia to work as a doctor? I'm radiologist and physician, so that's probably not as a freelancer. So that's not really connected to this. Czech work permit from labor office, so that's not a topical question. Student visa is not a topical question. As a tourist, setting up a company, applying for a residence permit. I mean, potentially we could do that, but it depends on what is your purpose of stay in terms of the business plan, because that decides if you will get the freelance visa or not. So we could potentially help, but you would need to have a very clear business plan, be able to prove it. Then it depends also on your nationality and other factors. So ideally get in touch and we can discuss separately, because the live stream does not have enough space for that now. But yeah, let's go back to the purpose of stay and proving the purpose of stay, because that's the most important part of the visa process. So basically what the ministry wants to see when you're applying for a freelance visa in the Czech Republic is that you really have a solid business plan, that it's not just like some fake application, because it used to be pretty popular, especially among some nationalities, that they would just buy or open a company here, like a limited liability company, apply for a business visa based on that, got it approved, and then do nothing. Just like, because you got the company, you got the visa, blah, blah, blah. And then the ministry made the rules more complicated, as they do with everything. I talked about it with the student visa some time ago. But the point is that now, even if you have all the officially required documents and you don't have anything extra, very likely your visa will be denied, even as an English teacher. Because now the ministry actually wants to verify that you really have a solid business plan. They want to see that you've already done something towards the business plan. So it's not just like a dream in your head, but if it's the teaching that you already have letters of interest, you found some schools you will be teaching for, or potentially private students or combination. If you want to open a restaurant, that you already have the space for the restaurant, that you have the menu, you have the prices for the food, you might have some suppliers already of the meat or vegetables or whatever you will be doing. If you're a consultant or if you were the personal trainer, then you would ideally need to have some gyms that are willing to work with you and give you clients so you can like train them there. So you always need to have some proofs of what you want to do. And then it also needs to make sense, and you also need to be able to explain it to the ministry properly, because very likely the people who will be making the decision about your business visa have never done business, because they've been working at the Ministry of the Interior, which is a public authority, often like years and years and years. So you also need to be able to explain simply what exactly you will be doing, but it also must be at the same time elaborate enough so they see it as a real business plan and not just something like you put on like one page of a document. So you might also need to have a business plan. Depends really on what you want to do here. But if you're not an English teacher, it's very difficult. Doable. We've had a lot of different cases from like fire extinguishers company, which was like a huge company, so it was a bit easier. We've had a software development company that hired like hundreds of, probably not at that point, but now they have hundreds of employees in the Czech Republic. We've had a small like clothes store, secondhand store. We've had other business plans as well, so they can work, but it's way more preparation. Let's see. Personally, I don't need a freelance visa as I have PR, but it's always interesting to hear your insights. Thanks for sharing. Thank you very much for being here. I think you're coming always to the live stream, so thank you very much for coming all the time. My project is completely ready. I offer digital services. I will sell to Europe and North America. That might be kind of problematic as well, because that's the other thing you need to prove, and that is that you need to do the business in the Czech Republic and that you need to be here physically. Because if it's an online project or online service, there is not really a reason for you to do it from the Czech Republic, is there? You know, so then the Czech Republic will very likely not approve your visa, because they could say, hey, you can do this from your home country, so why would you do it from the Czech Republic? There is no reason for that, so there is no reason for the visa. It's a very thin line and balance which you need to find. I've talked in some of the previous videos about the digital nomad visa, and actually there is no digital nomad visa per se. There is no new visa category. You just get, if you meet the requirements, so let's say you're in IT or marketing, you have 3 years of experience and a couple other qualification requirements, then you can also apply for the freelance visa if you're a freelance digital nomad, or you can apply for the other visa if you're an employee digital nomad. So potentially you would also be applying for the freelance visa as a digital nomad. It just works a bit differently, because you don't need to have a local, or you don't need to have a connection to the Czech Republic. You just need to have one big client in like somewhere outside of the Czech Republic, or one big employer. But so from this perspective, the digital nomad version of the freelance visa is way more flexible, because you don't need to find local clients. You can keep the job you have and you can just apply. On the other hand, it's very limited, because only 13 nationalities at this point can apply, and only from IT and marketing, plus you need to meet some other requirements. So they are very close, the standard business visa and the digital nomad version of the business visa, but there are some significant differences you need to keep in mind. And the last thing I will talk about, because in 4 minutes, my internet will close down. I have this set up on my phone that's at 9 o'clock, the phone shuts down. So the last thing I will talk about now is the most common reasons for denials of the freelance visa. So that's always interesting. Number one, obviously, business purpose of your stay or the business plan. That's like, I would say, 95% of applications that I've seen got denied. Not our clients usually, because we have 98% of approval rate for the business visa, so we don't get that many denials. We do get some, but not really that often. But often people write to us, hey, I was denied. What can I do? Can I reapply? Can I make an appeal? So we read the letters that the ministry provides, and weak business plan, number one, like by far. But there are some other reasons as well that you, for example, don't, because some people in different countries works differently, but in the Czech Republic you still need to have physical original documents. So if you go to the embassy and you only have scans or simple copies, that's not gonna work out. Some documents missing, or usually it's an apostille or proper translation missing. That primarily depends on the country, because in some countries like India, it's more common that you don't provide the apostille or you don't provide a certified translation. So that's usually a problem as well. And then also the money requirement, because for the business visa, you need to have 160,000 crowns or equivalent, and you need to keep it there during the whole approval process. And sometimes people have enough money in the beginning, but then they spend the money when they rent an apartment in the Czech Republic, maybe for our services or for some other services, or they just like live from their savings in the Czech Republic because they cannot work, and they drop below. And then if the ministry requests a new proof of funds, they don't have it anymore. So that's usually also a problem. But now we have like 20 seconds, so I will not be continuing, but thank you very much, guys, for being here today. And as I mentioned in the beginning, I will now go to the members only section, and I will be doing another live stream where you can ask me anything, not only related to the freelance visa. So if you're not a member yet, join, and I'll be happy to see you there. So I see that there are 3 more questions I didn't answer. So if you comment under this video when it's uploaded, I'll answer them in the comments. Okay? I see that Khalid, Matkofron, and Ezomandias wrote still something, and I didn't answer that.